Hey you guys, Funky Like Feathers here. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. If not, welcome back. So tonight we are going to be talking about codexes and putting them together and how to use them and how to get kind of the most out of what it is that you do for all the planning for your books, right? For the books that you're writing. So codexes can look very different. And I think that's kind of the whole point is to not have codex that looks exactly like somebody else's because it's supposed to be yours. It's supposed to be your codex. It's supposed to talk about your book and your manuscript. So we need to make it work for you, right? And I talk about this all the time when it comes down to, all of the different details that go into our manuscripts, right? And like even when we talked about the planning of it and the fact that I post tons of the different kinds of printables and stuff like that to use is because they have to be custom to you. They have to work well for you. They have to make sense in your head. And sometimes they just have to be formatted differently to make sense in your head. And that's kind of what we're dealing with today. Okay, so I posted a couple of the resources that I'm going to be talking about tonight. I'm going to go click over there on my Patreon page. So they are free to access over there. You can print as many as you need. So it's got codex creation. It's got tons of different things. So over there, we've got your plot or your character profile page, your plot embryo that's blank, the one with the labels, a plot arc structure, the scene breakdown, a save the cat description of the different beats, a story wheel, types of conflicts, story genius senior card made by Maria Lopez, and a story arc scene card, again, made by Maria Lopez. So all of those are available over on my Patreon page for free for you guys so that you can access these and print out as many as you need. Okay, so it's patreon.com/funkylikefeathers. And seriously, print as many as you need. So like I usually have 10 character profiles. That's just kind of the basis of where we start, right? Because you end up with like these random side characters and you don't realize that you need a character profile page for them because there's details that you're going to forget and you have to keep track of that. So even like really, I don't go as in depth for character profiles if they aren't like a major character. Like if it's not my master or my major characters, I don't go as far into detail for those because I don't really need to, right? I mean, like, again, it's however deep you need to go. If you really want to sit there and have, do the personality tests and everything for your side characters, that's cool. I mean, that's your decision. It's your project, right? So I'm going to show you what my first codex looked like because this is my 5th year doing Nano. Okay, so this is year 5. We're going to go back to yesteryear and show my first codex because I saw Rachel Steven on YouTube. If you haven't seen her videos on plot embryos and all that, like seriously, go check out her channel. When she had green hair and bangs, she did a lot of videos on plot embryos and how to utilize them. So I saw her use kind of just a little notebook to plan out her books. And I was like, this is genius. I can carry this everywhere. Toss it. I use a backpack as like a purse kind of thing. So I'm like, I can toss this in my bag, take it with me anywhere. And this did not go well. I tried. I did. I really, really tried. I wanted it to work, but it did not go well. But I tried putting a bunch of stuff in it. So like I had a printout. I think this is from her. Of kind of what the plot embryo is supposed to look like, right? With kind of some of the labels. I think I got that from Rachel Stevens. And then I just used some random tabs on the side to indicate like where I was gonna be in this planning process. Hey, Rubina. Hi, Lola. So I'm like, it says plot, and I have like these little stars, and it's supposed to be a breakdown of what's supposed to be happening in the story. But that's really easy to get lost. Really easy to get lost. So, and I mean, one of the tabs says, like these are the drawings that I want one of my character to make because those were going to play a big role in the story. right? Because again, there's all these little side pieces of information that you need to keep track of, and it is not easy. So, but I mean, I figured having somewhere to kind of brainstorm, right? I mean, like in theory, it's there. Places to brainstorm, great. Because then I thought it was really intriguing. She talked about breaking down motive, conflict, and effect. Okay, so like there was like this chart, right? Like figure out the motives for your characters. Okay, like I seriously, I drew it all up like how she did. Conflict, talked about the conflicts and trying to figure out what all of this looked like. Hey, Bomber. And then effect, making sure that all of those actions and everything had some kind of effect to the characters. So, I mean, like I was taking notes in here. It's great to have a notebook like this to carry around with you so that you can write down things that pop up into your head. I think this is a great idea. I was just telling myself earlier today and talking to a friend that I needed to put my notebook back into my bag to carry with me everywhere because stuff does pop up into your head and you need to be able to jot stuff down, right? So going through that, but then this was my original plot embryo, right? And so it mirrors this. See? Is there a tab on this page? No, there is not. Do I lose it all the time? Yes, I do. Okay, so, but that's the thing though, is like taking the time to learn different ways of doing stuff, right? I have different things that I needed to keep track of. So like, again, just like random bullet points of things to pay attention to while I'm writing a story because it just wasn't coming together. And then literally I have a thing called random shit tag. I have things falling out of here because this was a random piece of paper that I wrote in my other notebook about stuff that needed to be included. And so literally things are still falling out of this thing. Okay. And then I tried to talk about my characters. You can see how well that went because I just tried to put a different character. And this is tidbits about that character. It literally says tidbits, right? And then the funky friend, right? So I gave them kind of the little little nicknames. Mystery Man. Everybody hates that name, by the way, but I still do call him Mystery Man. No shame, none. So the theory is there. The idea is there. Okay, like it's a good concept. It's a good place to start. It's good to have one of these on hand so that you can keep notes to yourself. But at the same time, you're going to have to do something with these notes because if they stay in here, then they're not making it into your book. See the problem? So carry a notebook with you so that you can write stuff down, but don't forget that you're going to have to actually add it into your codex and file that information with it later. Okay, so like this is stuff you have to follow up with that goes in here. So the next year, I decided, all right, I'm going to go official with this. Now, how many of you guys have seen people either on YouTube or Instagram, different influencers saying they have a nano packet or a nano prep workbook, right? Like, have you guys seen people posting workbooks that are available and be like, this is the perfect workbook to help you prepare for NaNoWriMo, right? And they're like, it has everything in it. It has pages for characters. It has things to plan your setting. It has, things to plan your plot, blah, blah, blah. And you can print it all in one, and then you don't have to worry about anything else. It's all together. And you're like, sweet, like shortcut. I can just print that out. I can pay them a couple dollars, print that out, and like, done. I am prepared for Nano, right? Okay, Bomber, you've seen somebody do this. Now, I found somebody who had one of these, and it was free online. And I was like, sweet, I'm going to download this, see what it's about. And so I went ahead and did that. I printed it all out. I added a couple of extra pages, like to add stuff, right? Okay, so yeah, I tried that with a world building workbook. Girl, I needed more space. Not even kidding, right? So I did. I made sure that I printed out this giant workbook that somebody had, and I gave myself extra pages in the back. And I found this fun little, cover picture from Pinterest. It says, the first draft of anything is shit. Ernest Hemingway, right? And so, I mean, but it was a free workbook to try out. Now, you can try going to this website. I've attempted to go back there so I can share from them directly, and I have not been able to find this workbook since. But it is a really great starting point. I really do like it, and I like their character profile. I thought that it was fun. But it was like ToriCox.com, right? So she was amazing to put this there. There's a month before checklist, stuff to work on beforehand. I added a couple of checklists that I found other places. There was a motivation page to like help you stay motivated to write. I was like, this is genius, right? Craft your pitch. I was like, what? This is amazing. It's going to help me walk through the whole story. Do you guys see how big this is? It is not that big. Okay. Not enough space in here to do all the planning, because you have to keep in mind you're planning an entire book, a whole manuscript. There is no way everything can fit in here. Okay. There just isn't. So like for character profiles, I ended up like, so this is a character. I ended up like adding notes, and then I printed out other stuff and like gluing it in there just so that I could have more complete character profiles, because I felt like there was so much stuff missing, right? And that's kind of important. Like I've got, smells for people, and it's just because that's important, right? Because like that's sensory information. So I knew that I needed that, especially because we're dealing with, there's a lot of magic in here. So I had to like figure out my magic system, which also means that in the back, I started finding some resources and stuff to like glue in there, right? But then you can see me like writing a ton of stuff in there. So it's just not complete, right? There was a lot of space for improvement. There were a lot of things that I needed to add that just were not there. And that's difficult. Like, and that again comes down to the fact that you really need everything custom. Like you really do need to give yourself space to add, subtract, move stuff around, right? Because how about a family tree? You need to know what the family tree looks like especially if there's like magic involved and stuff. Like oftentimes things flow through family lines and all that kind of stuff. So like give yourself space for that, because Nelly, it all adds up. There was also a calendar in here, right? For like a writing log, which of course is a great stinking idea. It's amazing. But then she had like week 2 review. You can see I didn't make it to week 2 to do a review. But simple question, like words written, words left, how I'm feeling, what I'm learning, my favorite line, my favorite scene, my best writing session, trials, tribulations, and triumphs, things to keep in mind for next week. These are all amazing things. It's just that this became just as much work as the actual writing. That's a problem, right? So that's stuff to consider too, because like you said, like this is just, Nano's a big project. It's a big project. So give yourself some space, right? And then there was final review. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So, and then she even had stuff on like dialogue and details and all sorts of stuff. But then I would glue in pictures of settings that I wanted. So I would kind of like put the coffee shop and stuff like that, just so that I had references with me. Now, if you are using something like Scrivener or whatever, it has a NaNoWriMo template. I don't know if you'll know that, but there is actually a NaNoWriMo template. And it has a section for character profiles and settings and stuff like that. So you can actually add things from, like, if you have a Pinterest board that has that kind of information, you can actually just like copy and paste it over into your Scrivener, and it'll keep that stuff on file for you as well. I am very old school. I have to have stuff printed out, much to my husband's dismay. I have to print it out, and I have to be able to touch it. I have to be able to do something with it, because I like having it on my table while I'm writing. Right. Now, let me know, are you guys old school or are you new school? Are you more of a digital kind of person, or are you going to like print stuff out? Do you put together a Pinterest board? I mean, like, let's see what you guys do, because I know a lot of people that do this. They have like a playlist put together for their world, right? So that while they're writing, they can like get in the mood of that realm that they're creating, right? Or like Pinterest boards with different characters' outfits and settings that they've got going on. Like some people are really intense on this, like really, really intense, right? And I totally get it because as you're writing and you're creating everything in this other realm, you do have to kind of get into that mindset, right? And so totally get it. Now, I don't dress up to write. I haven't done that yet. Maybe we can try that this year. Maybe that would help. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that would be kind of fun to do one year. It's like dress up as one of your characters and time period and everything. That might be kind of cool. Because they're not doing the Night of Writing Dangerously anymore. Right? So it might be a good idea to try that kind of stuff. Right? So then I also attempted, like I shown you guys before, like I took what was in my plot embryo and tried to, again, go super old school. Post-it notes. Post-it notes, y'all. So bummer, old school print off resources, Pinterest, Spotify, pen and paper, hide under keyboard later, comfy clothes. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I love this idea, Rubina. Write drunk in character, edit sober. Okay. So fun story. So what was it? 4 years ago? 3 years ago? I think both of them. Okay, so I was working on the same story for my second year and my first year. But so this one story that I have, I did a night of drinking. So we did a live write-in. Everybody was at home and we sat and drank and did word sprints. Okay. Now I pre-gamed and went to a Mexican restaurant, had my husband take me to Mexican and I had margaritas. And then I came home and I continued drinking. And like my husband was like bringing in beer and, drinks just nonstop. Like he literally was my little bar boy because he would come in with shots randomly. And I was drinking all night long. And I wrote for that book. And when I went back to reread the book and I tried to figure out what chapters I wrote while I was drinking, I couldn't figure out which ones I was drinking for. And I still haven't found the drinking chapters. I cannot tell. I don't know if that's a good thing or a sad thing, or I don't know what that means. But I still have not found the drunk chapters. And I always edit sober. So, but I haven't found the drunk chapters. I'm still looking for them. But I think it would be hilarious to figure that out. Yes, you may call him my bar boy as much as you want. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, I mean, if you guys want us to do a, drinking night, we can do that where we do, because I mean, think about it, y'all, we're going to be live on YouTube Mondays and Wednesdays, all of November, right? Like every single week. I'm going to be here live on Mondays and Wednesdays. So if you want to pick one to do like a drunk night, we can do a drinking evening. I will do that. I'm safe at home. You will be safe at home because goodness knows it's not like you're going to like go out and do this stuff in public. So yeah, you can be in your PJs safely at home, get your favorite, your favorite drink set up. That'll be fine. I made myself some iced coffee. It's been a long day. And I also have my Book Nerd University meeting tonight. So I have to leave like right on time because I have to shift over to a Zoom call because I'm talking about the book tonight. It's actually right behind me. So tonight, Book Nerd University is talking about Small Town Big Magic, right? And I'm going to announce to them what the book for next month is. And I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're not a part of Book Nerd University, so easy to get signed up. It's over on that Patreon page where all the free resources are, right? Enrollment into Book Nerd University is only $10 a month. And if you're local and you get your book of the month from Buy the Book, which is a local bookstore, they actually give you 10% off if you're enrolled in Book Nerd University. And I always make sure to hide stickers in the books. So Just a fun little tidbit of information there, but it is a whole lot of fun. So, and we have a blast. So yes, you can go as old school as you want. And seriously, like breaking things down onto Post-it notes was a really big help just to like make sense of my story in my head, right? I mean, like it made things so much simpler because I had to break things down step by step. There was no choice, right? Speaking of by the book, the owner just texted me because I got her number today. And she's like, who is this? Because I sent her like a random gift. So we're going to take a selfie here. We're going to show her. There you go. All right. That's right. That's what we do. So as we're going through codexes, so we started out here. And like I said, I totally suggest that everybody have a notebook to keep with you. I tried so much to like connect to this. I even like bent up the thing because I was trying to, so like you can probably, yeah, there you go. You can see like how bent up it is. I literally tried to make it like more like huggable, malleable, right? Like tried to make it my own. It just did not work. Okay. This one, you can tell I like soft covers a lot of times because they're just easier to function with. I don't know. Are you a hardcover person or a soft cover person? It depends on the person, right? I mean, it depends on the person. And because I kept gluing stuff in here, it kept getting more and more stiff, and that bothered me. This does not, it does not flop, okay? It's just like when people get paperback versus hardback books. That's gonna matter to you. Okay, so pay attention to what it is that you like, right? So I like this kind of thing. I wish it worked better for me, but it didn't. So what do I do? Well, in case you did not know, I was a very good student in school, okay? I have always enjoyed learning. I have always loved learning. I was a total nerd, no shame, book nerd university, right? Love it. Love being a nerd, love learning. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to break this down. I'm going to go back to absolute basics on what I know and how I function best. I do not know how people utilize the legal pad, the paper goes up. What? What? How does that make sense in people's heads when the paper is going over the top? That just, I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay, so my head works horizontally. Everything has to go this way, right? Like even when I was at jobs and had to like create my own SOPs, standard operating procedures for you guys, like I always put things in binders and there's dividers and there's sheet protectors and like it's school, right? And like, so what did I do? I got a binder, okay? And then I got my dividers. My child drew a picture of me. Does it look like me? Ta-da! I think it was pretty accurate. All right. So my kid drew a picture of me. She also gave me a very nice note. It says, "I love you, Mom." I know it's backwards for you guys, but that's what it says. This was several years ago, in case you were wondering. Oh, by the way, she's in the picture. She's over there. She's over there staring at me because that is often what children do when you are trying to get work done in the house. Okay. They stare at you from the corner. And this is part of the reason I talk about having a sign on your door if you have children who can occupy themselves for a few moments, okay, by themselves. Because like my sign usually says, you know, writing in process or progress. And, if it's not on fire, you don't need my help. If the blood is not gushing, you don't need my help. And the kitchen's in the opposite direction. So if you're hungry, it's that way. Okay. Like I cannot help you for that time. So like I said, if you have children who you love and adore and they need something to do, you can try to set them up by themselves or something, but like put a little sign on your door or like put a Post-it note on your forehead, on the back of your screen. I don't care, but you need to let them know that like they need to mind their own business for a while because you got stuff to do. Okay. So when I go into this codex, because this binder is my codex. If you're wondering, yes, I won. Okay, there's one. Here's another one. Here's another one. Okay, so yes, I have to say this was my favorite theme. Beautiful, gorgeous, love it. So I have some random things at the front of the binder. I also had, oh, here's another thing that I put into, for some reason I didn't mark that off. I made a NaNoWriMo bingo card. And I made different ones of these every year. If you guys want me to make a nano bingo card, let me know. So it says things on here are like kill a character, research for work in progress, compile a playlist, make writing buddies, stay up late typing, character falls in love, consider a sequel, go off outline, get lost on YouTube, log your word count, finish off your snacks, have a flashback scene, brush off your inner editor, reheat your cold coffee. Those are kinds of things that are on the bingo card, as well as word goals. Obviously, I've won that, so I finished it, but I just didn't keep up with it, okay? That's what that is. All right. So, and then, because I'm an ML, I had like nano pages to keep track of people. There's this other website. If you've never checked out this oh, you want a rabbit hole? Woo, here you go. Here's a rabbit hole. Okay. So the website is EADEVERELL.com. Okay, like let me see. I will put it up here on this banner thing so you can see. But this is, I think this is the website that I found like so many things on. It's not even funny. EVERELL.com. Okay. I think that's it. Add banner. Show. Okay, so check this out because this is where I got this Preptober schedule. Okay, and it's undated, so it should be available. But this thing is super intricate, right? It's a Preptober schedule. So like prepping and everything. So it's stuff to kind of get done before you go fully jumping into Nano, right? Like to get stuff prepped and ready. And these are some old, I can recycle this. There's some old scene cards that are no longer complete. We've added stuff to it since then. But yeah, there's tons of stuff on this website as far as like writing resources and stuff. Totally go check it out. Tons of stuff. Screenshot that. Screenshot. Everybody screenshot. Everybody write that down. Yes. Great. Okay. Good. Okay. Stop. How do I get rid of that? Oh man. Gotta go back. All right. And hide. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, like I said, tons of stuff over there. Like, seriously, there are tons of things on how to get ready for Nano. So when you go into my codex, the first thing I have there is a Nano checklist. The prep checklist. Okay. So similar to that thing that printed off that from that website I showed you guys about. Literally, that's there, right? Then we start with the tabs because again, you want to organize your ideas here. Now, you need to think about how you think about your story. What is the most important things when you think about your story? Do you consider the plot most important, the settings most important, or the characters most important? Okay, there's really like three things here because this is going to influence how you organize your codex. Oh, it is not necessary. Climbing on my other dog. So think about how you want this to make sense in your head, right? So my first tab is about the plot, all the notes, all the ideas that go into the story. Because even though I'm breaking down, so like with the tabs, like I'm internally breaking down, but the tabs I use for characters, okay? Because to me, I feel like I need to know them. So I really need to break down their information and their backstories and everything so that my readers feel connected to the characters and I have to feel connected to the characters. But first and foremost, I have to know what the story is. So I always make my plot embryo. So this is the plot embryo for this one. I've got ordinary world and special world. Okay. And you can see it's all handwritten, right? Everything's in pencil so that I can erase and change things if needed. And that was a really important thing. because I needed to understand kind of how this was. Now, I actually have a co-author for this story. So that was something that I could easily make a copy of for her and send to her and go, hey, this is my overall plot for the book, right? Because otherwise it's really difficult to kind of convey what your story is about if you can't break it down nicely, right? So that kind of gives a nice overall view of what the story is. Then comes random handwritten, not kidding, random handwritten notes about stuff that needs to be included in the story or ideas, right? Because there are other tidbits about information. Put it in there, right? Anything you can do to better understand your story, that's what you're going to need, right? Then, of course, I have this little exercise, which was sketch a novel in an hour exercise. Y'all, this is easy to find on little Google searches, okay? Sketch a novel in an hour. It asks you questions, okay? There are 11 questions, in case you're wondering, and it'll help you break down your story. But then that's when I start putting in my scene cards, okay? Now, we talked about scene cards last week, right? We broke down the different points in our story. We worked on creating some scene cards, and this allows us to really kind of see what needs to be included and where it needs to be. And because each of the main sections of your plot embryo can break down into multiple scenes, okay? So, and that's one thing to really understand is that there is a lot more information than just the primary thoughts that go onto that scene, on that plot embryo. So there may be more than one scene to that, especially like to that act and everything. So keep that kind of stuff in mind. Now, the new scene cards that I have listed over on Patreon, they have the information that I hand wrote up here. They actually have sections for that information to go. So like what the weather was, what the setting was, what the sounds and smell like. So the ambiance and the mood and all that, that is all just kind of added. And you can actually see up here, I put the numbers of which scene went where. Okay, that was so that I could look at them in the big picture and go, where does this need to go, right? That's important. I have all the way to what? 14, 15. I have 15 scene cards here, and there's also extra notes, again, because sometimes you just need to write it down by hand. So those are extra notes to go with that scene card. And then I've got scene cards. And they're all handwritten. Everything is just on there, right? I mean, like, yes, really broken down. Because that way, when I'm writing a scene, you can figure out which one you feel like writing, pull out that scene card, and you know where it goes in the overall story. So if you've already written that scene, it's done. You can put a little check mark on your scene card and go, okay, the scene is done. I'm good. And again, it allows you to more comfortably write out of order. Now, we've talked about that. How many of you guys are scared to write out of order? Is anybody worried about that? Does anybody think that they have to start on page 1, like line 1? Because I'm telling you, you don't. And I'm really actually going to encourage you not to. But why on earth would I be saying that? Right? Like, it's difficult when you sit down to write and it's nano and you're like, I am going to write an amazing manuscript. Just accept that it's not going to be amazing. It's going to feel amazing, but it's not going to be amazing when you go back to read it later. Accept that now. But when you start to write your story, yeah, see, like you used to be. So you want to be able to just like sit down because it's this amazing idea that you're just going to sit down one day and the magic is going to flow through you into your fingers and it's just, it's going to be an amazing story from step 1. And everything you write is going to be amazing and magical and perfect the first time. And it's all going to make sense. And the characters and the plot and the themes and the tone and all of the verbiage is going to be amazing. It's not. It's going to be terrible. Except that now, remember, that's why I put that cover on that codex. The first draft of anything is shit, okay? Because it was a reminder to myself that this is gonna suck, Okay, it's gonna suck and it's gonna be great. All right. That kind of thing helps you remember that yes, your first draft is not going to be amazing, but you do want to be able to feel in the groove as you are writing. So having that scene card and knowing, okay, here's the overall on the scene. And especially then you can write the scenes that you're most excited about writing. You can write those first because your passion is going to show in the manuscript. So if you're trying to write every single scene in order, you're not going to be as passionate about the opening scene as you are going to be about like the climax that's later on, right? Or like that final scene where you get like dun dun dun. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be an amazing scene, and like you're going to be in the mood to write that scene one day, or just then you already know that scene is taken care of. And so the other scenes you have in between, you can just go ahead and plop those in between. And if it needs some kind of tying together, cool. But that's also why on the scene cards, it's kind of explained so that you can showcase the scene coming in, you can showcase what's happening in the scene, have a purpose for the scene, and then what's supposed to come after that scene, like what the consequences are, how it's going to flow into the next one. So that's part of that scene card, is it'll allow you to kind of seamlessly, oh, seamlessly go from one scene to the other. So it makes it easier as opposed to being kind of choppy, right? Again, one of the biggest things is family trees. So I had to write out how everyone was related, approximate ages on a cheat sheet, if you will, a character cheat sheet. So I know who's who, because even when you make these characters out of your head, but you're gonna get really lost. All right, because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And I changed somebody's name. There's a lot of cross outs on this. I've got cross outs on names. Okay, like I changed characters' names. Like I have to keep track of that. Rubina, I'm scared, but I usually do start from the beginning. But I have been writing scenes as they've been coming to me. Woo! All right, this is good. This is growth. This is growing. Growing is hard. Okay, kudos. Round of applause. This is a big step. Okay, it's a very big step to write things out of order. Because I'm telling you, especially it's like ingrained in us in school that like you have to write from the beginning. You start at the beginning. And then you're supposed to start there and you write the story. That's not how stories work, especially when they're so big. So big. Like so big. These stories are a lot bigger. And especially when you start like really adding all of these things into it, it's going to become a monster. Okay. Like my first book, it was supposed to be 50K. It ended up around 73. Okay. Just because there's so much that you need to add to that manuscript to actually make the story, right? And you realize that as you start writing, you go, oh, and there's more here. Oh, and there's something else that happens. Ooh, let's add more to this. Oh, I want to, tell you a little bit more. Do not become like Stephen King. Do not tell me every single item and texture and color in that room, but by golly, it should be really immersive, right? Now, if you want a really good example of like how to make things immersive, and get your reader to really kind of sink into the story, I have to say, my students and I have been reading Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and it's an amazing case study in how to really bring your reader into the scenery. She's got so many similes and metaphors without it becoming like kitschy, without it just sounding overdone. A lot of times there's just a lot of good description there without info dumping, right? So great way of thinking about that. It is I would say it's kind of a middle to high school grade, so it's not full on adult. But yeah, great case study for how to kind of bring in a lot of good descriptions to scenery and tone and theme and all that kind of stuff to really just help you like sink in to a story. Amazing. So once I've got that overall kind of stuff, now this is also where you'll add all those random tidbits of information for your story, right? I put all of that kind of up front, and then I start organizing who my characters are. So I had several of the characters there. I ended up adding more, obviously, because they're not all listed here, and there's more tabs than who's on this paper. On here, though, I need to know if anybody's related. But then I've got like kooky neighbors and stuff like that. I always try to have like a goofy neighbor just as some comic relief. So then I start going into character breakdowns. So like the first one, I don't even know her name. It's a real celebrity though. So my kid drew a picture of the lady and her cat. Okay, her name is Rebecca. She goes by Becca. This is a real person, but I just kind of looked online. I found a person. I was like, yeah, I kind of like that. So it's the visual inspiration for the character. So I kind of keep her in my head as I am writing. And then it's the character profile pages that I have available over on Patreon. These are those exact pages I filled out for that character. So I have those ready to go. And then I found another character profile from someone. And I don't know, there's random information, but I just try to write down as much as possible because especially if it plays in a scene. Okay, so some of the things I tell people to like include in all these characters. One, they need to have some kind of physical identification mark on their body. So if they are dead and on a slab, you can tell who this person is. It should be a scar of some kind, a body spot, a mole, hair, something. Something has to be original about each character. And yes, each character. Okay, because every person you run into, every person you interact with is going to have a random scar. Now, whether that plays in the story doesn't matter. You need to know what they are because there's backstories with all of those marks, right? Even something as simple as like hair color, like something needs to be individual about these characters, whether they have, you know, even if it's a random piece of jewelry that they wear all the time, like there needs to be something unique about every single character you have. And so you have to keep track of that in your character profiles. Like I said, I'm dealing with a major magic system in this story. So one of the things I also have to keep track of is scent, smells, right? Everybody, as weird as it sounds, everybody has to smell different. Or there are slight overlaps in smell, especially because a lot of times we will showcase connections to characters or to settings based on their smell. And it's really interesting because even Sarah J. Maas has been doing that with her characters, and you can tell where a character is from because of a smell that they might have. And a lot of times people will make it so that when a character is utilizing magic, that they have a stronger scent. So again, there's little things like that where, especially like, and to showcase that, you don't be like they walked into a room and like, dang, their smell. It's not like that. It's usually a more subtle kind of situation. Like if somebody goes in to hug them, or when they are performing a lot of magic, that's when these scents will start to permeate and be introduced into the scene, right? But again, it's a way to show family connection. So if you want to hint at someone being related without being so obvious, pick a small characteristic, whether it's hair, a mannerism, a turn of phrase, something like that. You want to connect those characters. So again, important little tidbits. But if you don't write it down and keep track of it, of who has what characteristics that overlap, you're going to get lost, people. You're going to get lost. Okay? Bummer. Yeah, I smell people when I'm around new people. I'm sorry, is that weird? No, because it is something that is important. So this is also one of the things that when I'm reading a book, it may sound really strange, but especially when I'm editing or critiquing a work, one of the things I do watch out for is smell, because it is a very important sense that we have, that we do utilize in normal everyday life, that a lot of times writers don't include in the scene. So again, that's part of the reason that Maria and I made sure that it was included on those scene cards. You really do need to make sure that it has smells in different areas, because if you walk into somebody else's house, it's going to smell different, right? If you walk into a different store, it's going to have a certain smell to it. It also lets us know what the weather is, because a lot of times you can smell rain, right? Or if there's fresh dirt, you'll know. If the grass was just cut, you'll know. There's a smell to it. Now, I'm not saying like you need to like make sure that your character is sniffing everywhere they go like a flippin' bloodhound. That's not it, okay? It's just mention it at some point or have somebody mention it, just so that it kind of, again, brings your reader into that situation to help them really experience it. Because studies have even shown that everybody has these memory connections to smell. So something as simple as a smell of fresh cut grass. A lot of us have, I mean, you can say that and everybody knows what that smells like, right? Whereas if I say that my neighbor laid down fresh mulch, you're gonna be like, ooh, like, it's a very different smell. Okay. But it lets us know what's going on in the scene, or you can showcase that something's about to change because the smell changes, right? These little things have such big impact, and you don't realize it until you experience things like that, whether in another story or whether in real life, right? So it's things like that that really do help. I know it seems strange, but I'm serious. Okay. Again, that's part of the reason that we like breaking things down. Now, again, when it comes to your codex, some of the other things I like to do is my brain dump pages. I type them up. I will have a bunch of writing resources in my codex, right? So I'm going to be, I have a workshop this coming weekend about writing resources. So after that workshop, I will be posting a bunch of them on my Patreon as well. So you guys can get them before the 1st. So I will make sure that they're there before Tuesday. So you guys can print them off and utilize them as much as you want. But it's really important to have those things, whether it is tenses that you're worried about, whether it's the several different kinds of senses. So I have a resource that specifically talks about like 57 different senses that we have. And a lot of times people don't pay attention to those. And that really bothers me because there's so much more than you realize. Even having something as simple as your hero's journey, just to keep yourself on track so that you know where you're going. This is also a really fun one. 50 better ways to say looks or seems like, words to describe someone's voice, words commonly used to describe sounds, things like that, where you can kind of pop in and check to see whether or not you're using a good enough variety of words. Because I know that a lot of times as we're writing, we get kind of stuck on some of these words and they pop off the page. And when you go and reread, you're like, oh my goodness, like I used that same word like 10 times. That's a problem, right? So paying attention to those kinds of things and just having them like in your head at the time can really help, right? Figuring out what point of view you're using, types of conflict. I mean, all of these things are going to be important. And again, it makes it a lot easier if you have this kind of stuff at your fingertips. The character archetypes, there are 12. Okay. I'll put some stuff up about those too, so that you can see whether or not your characters are fitting their archetype. Now, of course, they'll usually have more than one type. So things will start to overlap, and that's good because it makes them more dynamic, right? And we want to see dynamic characters, so that's important too. But again, stuff to keep in mind. Always know where you're at in the plot as you are writing it, please. Little bits like that are going to be really important, and all of that is stuff to keep in your codex with you, because you'll have it with you when you write. How about the emotion wheel? That's kind of a cool and important resource to have, so you can better express what it is your character's going through, right? So having a section in your codex for that and knowing that you have it with you allows you to easily flip to it and include that kind of information as you are writing. It makes it much more seamless as you're typing to get all this kind of stuff in. When you're writing about a certain character, make sure that you kind of know those characters well, that you've got those character profiles ready to go. You've got your scene cards ready to go. And like I put mine in a binder. So this is my binder for this year. It has no art on it yet. You can see I've got all my tabs ready to go, just so that I can easily flip through. And again, like I said, binders work well for me because I can move stuff, take stuff out, rearrange, very simple. But that way it's a lot easier to just know where the information is and just flip to it and pull up that information. If I need to know if someone is left-handed, that's important. That changes how they're going to pick up a pair of scissors. That can change whether or not they're the killer in something. Y'all, I watched an episode of Monk, and a woman had a broken arm and she was supposedly blind, and she reached out her left hand to shake someone's hand, and it was like, ooh, she's not really blind, because she would have, most people would have reached out with the other hand, but the guy had his right arm in a sling and she reached out with her left. Well, then she's not really blind because she saw that his right hand was in a sling. Right? Like random small pieces of information can become huge, right? So keep track of that. Now, even when reading a manuscript, there are times where I will start kind of charting out the stories that I'm reading because I need to understand who the characters are. So again, having kind of I call it kind of their street name for characters. So like the kooky neighbor, right? The chill best friend or the comic relief, like knowing who they are. If I've got like a jerky jock or something, it's good to know kind of what character they are. And that way it gives them a nice little umbrella so you know what category they're in as you're writing them. And so you're kind of creating your own archetypes as you do that, right? If you make somebody who's like the Harry Potter character, but then you have somebody else who is a Jane Eyre, right? Or you've got the crazy lady in the attic from Jane Eyre, right? I mean, like, I think every story needs a crazy lady in the attic, right? Like you need some random character who gets tossed in there and you're like, what is this? What just happened? And they throw the story for a loop. Amazing tool to use when it comes to stories, right? So having that laid out, and you can put that as their title when you're going through your character profiles so that you, again, it's an instant reminder to you because you have to know the characters. The reader gets slowly introduced. You have to know them forwards, backwards, and upside down. Okay, so that's what we want, is we want you to know exactly who they are. Something to include with your little batch. So codex being a binder, having a notebook with you so you can write random information, right? Something else to include. Post-its. Include some post-it notes because even though you may get stuff on paper, you're going to want to be able to add some random notes. Again, they bring your attention to other pieces of information that are on that page, right? So even when, and y'all have seen this, I know, in other videos, but I had a plot embryo that was there, but there were things that needed to be added, right? So that helps bring my attention to the fact that, oh, yeah, I need to pay attention to make sure that this tidbit of information is included there, right? So again, just making sure that you're prepared so that when you do go out to different write-ins, or if you're not at a write-in and you are just going to write by yourself, you have all the supplies that you need, because this codex needs to have everything about your story. Everything. Okay. So, and if somebody picks up your codex, they should know your story. They should know your characters. They should know your setting. Okay. That's what we want to showcase in here. You want references for everything. Print out as much stuff that you need. Make notes to yourself. I like using visuals because it gives a lot of information without having to write it down or without having to read it. Right? Like it's an instant reminder. So that's why I try to print out pictures of characters that I find that I need profiles for or whatever, just so that it's a quick snapshot of who they are, so that I don't have to try to read all of the details about them, right? If you need to make a little stick figure and they've been to war and they have all these scars and you want to put all the little marks on there and go, here's where this is and here's where all their injuries were, do that. If you have somebody who's highly tattooed and you need to put like a little chart and draw little pictures of where all their tattoos are because maybe they have magical powers with those tattoos, or their tattoos are uh they actually like come to life or something, or that's part of the story, is that they have a backstory with these tattoos. Chart it out. Okay, like draw the picture, because you need to know this, right? Again, all of that is for you to know, and the reader to find out. Okay. If you are including scenes that you do not have scene cards for, that's fine. That's right. It's fine. Okay. If you need to write a scene because you need to write the scene and it's just a lot of fun and you have no idea where it's going to go, by golly, write the stinking scene. Okay. Like, write the scene and put an extra piece of paper in there that goes, here's a random scene that I wrote, and remind yourself what that scene was. Okay. What it was about, what was included, if why you felt you needed to write it, whatever, put that in there just to kind of notate to yourself that, hey, I did write a fun little scene and I just thought it was funny. And you know what? That can be like your little blooper reel if you want to include that at the end of the book. I'm not going to stop you. Or you can say, hey, bonus chapter just for fun on my author website because I just thought it was fun. Why not? Okay. So when we say like write the scene and we can delete it from the main story later, that's literally what we mean. Because you need to write it for you. If that explains more for you, great. Right. And that's even what people think that Sarah J. Maas did with that blue book that you see right there. People are like, was this just like random stuff that she wrote? Like, it's so tiny compared to the other books in that series. Why on earth did she even write? It's like a novella, right? But if it's important stuff and if there's random details in there that we all need to know, by golly, study it as much as you study the other books to understand that series, right? Maybe it is stuff that needs to be known, but you won't have it written down if you don't just stinking write it. All right. So it's that kind of stuff that go ahead and make note of it in your codex. Have a random scene card. You don't even have to fill that out completely. Just be like, random scene added. Here's what it's about. And put that paper in your codex, because at least you know that it's there and you can utilize it if you need to, or move it if you need to. All right. That's the kind of thing that you need. Because then you can also, how easy is it when somebody's like, oh, tell me about the books that you've written? And I can easily go in and pull my codexes and be like, here you go. Those are the books I wrote. And when I've got a co-author and I need her to know what the story is, I can just give her access to my codex and be like, here's the background information on all the characters, right? Because I started writing the book, it was going really well, and then I got to like some really big stopping points, and I was like, I know that there's stuff here, but I really think that her writing style would work better, and I need her ideas on this, and I want to work with her on this. So I literally like gave her the manuscript. I'm like, here's everything I've written so far, and here's the rest of the information. Work with that. Change them, move them. I don't care. But like, let's make this happen. Right? So I have to be able to give her that information. And if you have an editor who's working on your manuscript and they need like a family tree, you can easily go, here you go. There's family tree. Done. Right? You don't have to sit down and start to try to draw it on like a cocktail napkin. Okay? Have it so that it's ready to go. You need to have the reference at all times. All right. Now, again, this Saturday, I'm going to be talking about writing resources. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into writing resources that most people don't consider. So keep that in mind. Like I said, I've got a workshop for that on Saturday. We're going to be really breaking that down. And it's here local in Texas. It's at Buy the Book, where you can get the Book Nerd University books for 10% off. So that is this Saturday at 11 o'clock. But we have no more live write-ins until, let's see, not until next Wednesday, which is the 2nd, right? So Nano will already be in full swing because I have an in-person write-in for the first day of Nano, all right? So those writing resources, though, will be available on the Patreon page before the 1st, okay? So I'm going to let you guys go for the evening. I'm going to go hang out with Book Nerd University so we can talk about this book that we had and get ready for next month's book, because we're still doing that, even though it's Nano. It's going to be amazing. I'm super excited. So thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I hope y'all are doing well. Let me know about y'all's projects. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on TikTok. Of course, I'm on Patreon. find one of those ways to contact me. Let me know how your projects are going. I will see you guys later. Have a great night.